I spent a decade believing that if I wrote enough checks, I could buy my parents the stability they refused to build for themselves. I purchased them a home, a sanctuary paid for with my silence, but it took my brother less than 30 days to convince them to sell it out from under me. I pulled into the driveway expecting gratitude, only to find a hollow shell and a family that had traded my sacrifice for his quick cash. The fluorescent lights of the corporate tower in downtown Seattle hummed with a frequency that I had long ago stopped hearing. It was 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and I was the only one left on the 24th floor, finalizing a merger agreement that was worth more than the entire gross domestic product of a small island nation. My name is Scarlett Harris. I am 33 years old. I am a senior associate at a firm that does not believe in work-life balance, and that suits me just fine. Silence and spreadsheets have always been safer than the chaos of people. I paused typing to check my personal banking app. The scheduled transfer had gone through 3 hours ago. $2,500 sent to a joint account held by my parents in Cedar Creek. I stared at the confirmation number. It was a sterile, digital string of digits, but to me, it looked like a heartbeat. For as long as I could remember, I had operated under a single, brutal equation: stability equals love. If I could build a wall of money high enough around my parents, I could protect them from the world. I could protect them from their own bad decisions, and maybe, if the wall was thick enough, they would finally look at me and see a daughter, rather than just a safety net. I closed the laptop and rubbed the bridge of my nose. The equation was expensive. It cost me my social life. It cost me relationships. Men would eventually grow tired of the way I checked my phone during dates, waiting for the inevitable crisis call from home. But the equation worked, or so I told myself. It had started in earnest 6 months ago. My father, a man whose pride was inversely proportional to his bank account, had collapsed in the cereal aisle of a grocery store. It wasn't a heart attack, the doctor said. It was stress. It was the crushing weight of renting a drafty farmhouse they could no longer afford, trying to heat it with space heaters that tripped the breakers, and hiding the eviction notices that had started piling up in the mailbox. I flew home. I did not cry. I did not panic. I did what I always do. I fixed it. I sat them down in that freezing kitchen, wearing my tailored blazer that cost more than their car, and I laid out the plan. I would buy a house. A sensible single-story bungalow in Cedar Creek, a quiet town 40 minutes away, where the property taxes were low and the neighbors were nosy but harmless. I would put down the entire down payment. I would carry the mortgage in my name if I had to, but to save their dignity, we structured it so they were on the title, with me as the silent guarantor who paid the monthly note. I remember my mother's face when I handed her the keys. She didn't hug me. She looked at the key fob, then at my father, and said, "Well, at least it has a garden." That was the dynamic. I gave them a life raft, and they complained about the color of the rubber. The first few months in the new house were peaceful. I visited every other weekend, driving the 3 hours from the city to inspect the gutters and fill their refrigerator, but I began to notice a narrative taking shape that I had not authorized. During a 4th of July barbecue, I stood by the sliding glass door, holding a plate of potato salad. Listening to my father hold court with 2 men from the neighborhood, we decided it was time to downsize smart, my father said, leaning back in a lawn chair I had bought him. You know how it is. We wanted to liquidate some equity and get into something more manageable. A strategic move. I gripped the plastic plate until it bent. Liquidate equity? There was no equity. They had been drowning in debt. I had pulled them out, but I said nothing. I watched my mother nod in agreement, sipping iced tea, playing the role of the shrewd retiree. They were erasing me. In their story, they were the heroes of their own survival. I was just the background character who showed up occasionally to mow the lawn. I told myself it didn't matter. It was better for their health if they felt capable. I swallowed the bitterness, just like I swallowed the overtime hours, and went back to the city. Then Austin came back. My brother is 36 years old. He has a smile that can open bank vaults and a work ethic that could not crack an egg. He had been gone for 2 years. chasing a venture capital opportunity in Florida that sounded suspiciously like a pyramid scheme involving dietary supplements. I was sitting at my desk on a Thursday morning when my mother called. Her voice was light, breathless, a tone I never heard when she spoke to me. "Guess who is here?" "Scarlett." I felt the dread pool in my stomach. "Austin? He surprised us," my mother chirped. "The business thing in Florida? Well, the partners were dishonest. Austin was too trusting. You know how he is. He needs a place to land for a few weeks while he sorts out his next big project. He is not staying at the house," I said, my voice flat. "Scarlett, don't be like that," she snapped, the joy evaporating instantly. "He is your brother. We have the spare room. He wants to help us fix up the garage. He is 36, Mom. He doesn't need to fix the garage. He needs a job. You are so hard on him. You always have been. Just be happy for us that the family is together." She hung up before I could argue. The following weekend, I drove down to Cedar Creek. The atmosphere in the house had shifted entirely. Where the air had previously been stagnant and quiet, it was now charged with a chaotic energy. Austin's duffel bags were exploded all over the living room, his shoes were by the door, and my parents looked 10 years younger. Austin was in the kitchen, making an omelet. He was wearing a t-shirt that was too tight, showing off gym muscles that were the only thing he consistently maintained. "Scarlett!" he shouted, waving a spatula. "The prodigal sister returns." "Hello? Austin?" I said, setting my purse on the counter. I looked at the counter. Usually, my parents kept a neat stack of mail there. Bills, flyers, the local paper. I liked to flip through it to make sure nothing was overdue. The counter was empty. "Where's the mail?" I asked. Austin flipped the omelet with a flourish. "Oh, I took care of it. Mom and Dad were getting stressed about all the paper, so I organized a system, filed it away. You don't need to worry your pretty little head about it." I felt a muscle twitch in my jaw. "My head is not little, Austin, and I pay the bills, so I need to see them. Relax, Scar," he said, flashing that boyish grin that made high school teachers forgive his missing homework. "I am handling the admin stuff. You do enough with the money side. Let me contribute sweat equity. I am helping them digitize." "Digitize?" My father couldn't even use the television remote without calling me. I looked at my father, who was sitting at the table, reading a sports magazine. "Dad, did you give Austin the passwords?" My father didn't look up. "He is helping us. Scarlett, he has a head for business." I almost laughed. Austin had a head for bankruptcy, but the wall was up. They were a unit, the three of them, and I was the outsider, the auditor, the killjoy. Over the next month, the exclusion became systematic. I would call to ask about the property tax assessment that was due, and my mother would be vague. "Oh, Austin handled that." She would say, "How did he handle it?" I would ask, "He has $40 to his name. He made a call. He sorted it out. Stop grilling us, Scarlett." I tried to log into the utility accounts online to check the balances, but the passwords had been changed. When I asked Austin about it via text, he replied 4 hours later, "Security update. Just trying to keep them safe from hackers. We'll send you the new ones later." He never sent them. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that maybe it was good that someone else was carrying the mental load. Maybe I was jealous that he could do with a smile what I could only do with a checkbook. But the unease sat in my chest like a cold stone. It was a Tuesday in October when the facade cracked. I had taken a half-day off work to drive down and surprise them with groceries. I wanted to fill the freezer before winter set in. I pulled into the local market in Cedar Creek, grabbing a cart and marching toward the produce section. I was thumping a melon when a woman in a floral raincoat tapped me on the shoulder. It was Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor 2 doors down from my parents. "Scarlett, isn't it?" she asked. "The daughter?" "Yes, Mrs. Higgins. Good to see you." She leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "I just wanted to say, congratulations. I know how hard it is to move elderly parents. My sister went through it last year, but you managed to get them out so quickly." I froze, My hand stayed on the melon. I am sorry? I said. Get them out? Mrs. Higgins blinked. The move. I saw the truck the other day. And that nice young man. Your brother. He told me they were heading to a retirement community in Arizona. He said the climate would be better for your father's chest. The world tilted on its axis. The fluorescent lights of the grocery store seemed to sear my retinas. Arizona? I said, my voice sounding very far away. Yes. I assumed that was why the house was being shown so aggressively. I saw the people coming in and out all weekend. I abandoned the cart. I left the melon, the milk, the bread. I walked out of the store, my heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the asphalt, and got into my car. I drove to the house. I did not speed. I drove with a terrifying, icy precision. When I turned onto their street, the house looked normal at first glance. The grass was cut. The curtains were drawn. But as I pulled closer, I saw it. The flower pots on the porch, the heavy ceramic ones I had bought for my mother, were gone. The porch swing was stripped of its cushions. It didn't look lived in. It looked staged. I parked in the driveway and walked to the front door. My key still worked. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. Lemon polish and emptiness. The living room was decluttered. The personal photos were gone from the mantel. The stack of magazines was gone. The throw blankets were folded with military precision. My parents were in the kitchen. They were eating sandwiches off paper towels. Austin was nowhere to be seen. They looked up as I entered. The guilt on their faces was instantaneous and blinding. My father put his sandwich down. My mother wiped her hands on her apron, her eyes darting to the hallway. "Scarlett," she said, her voice high and brittle, "we weren't expecting you." Mrs. Higgins congratulated me on the move. I said, I stood in the archway, keeping my hands in my coat pockets so they wouldn't see them shaking. "She says you are moving to Arizona." My father made a noise that sounded like a scoff, but he didn't meet my eyes. "That woman talks too much. She confuses things." "Does she?" I walked into the room. "Where are the pictures? Mom? Where are the porch cushions? Why does this house look like a model home?" "We are just decluttering," my mother cried out, jumping to the defensive. "Austin said we had too much junk. He said a clean house is a clean mind. We are just organizing." "Don't lie to me," I said. It was the first time I had ever spoken to them with the voice I used in boardrooms. It was cold and hard, and it cut the air. "Is the house for sale?" My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You come in here, throwing accusations, acting like you own the place." "I do own the place. Dad, I paid for every brick. That is exactly it," he shouted, his face turning a dangerous shade of red. "You never let us forget it. You hold it over us. The money, the charity. Austin understands. Austin listens to us. He knows we aren't happy here. It's too big. It's too much maintenance." "So you are selling it?" "We are discussing options," he roared. "And we don't need your permission to discuss our lives." I looked at my mother. She was twisting her wedding ring, looking at the floor. "Mom?" I asked. She whispered, "You always make things so tense. Scarlett, why can't you just be supportive? We are tired. Please, just go." I stood there for a long moment. I looked at the parents I had tried to save, and I saw strangers. Strangers who resented the lifeboat because it reminded them they couldn't swim. "Fine," I said. I turned around and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently, with a click that sounded like the end of the world. I drove back to the city in a daze. I went to my apartment. I poured a glass of wine and stared at the skyline. I told myself to let it go. If they wanted to sell, let them sell. If they wanted to follow Austin into some Arizona desert fantasy, let them go. I was done. I was officially resigning from the position of family savior. I went to bed at midnight. At 2:17 in the morning, my phone rang. The ringtone shattered the silence. I knew who it was before I looked. I fumbled for the device on the nightstand. "Mom?" "Scarlett," she was sobbing. It was a wet, jagged sound. "Scarlett, I don't know. I didn't think." "Mom, what is it? What happened?" "He said it would take months," she cried. "He said we were just testing the market. But they are here. They are here now. Who is there? The men. The truck. Scarlett. I don't have my medicine. I can't find my box. Then the line went dead. I didn't think. I didn't calculate. The resignation I had felt hours ago evaporated, replaced by a primal, stupid instinct to protect. I threw on jeans and a sweater, grabbed my keys, and ran. I broke every speed limit on the interstate. The rain had started, a miserable Pacific Northwest drizzle that turned the road into a mirror. I made the 3-hour drive in 2 hours and 10 minutes. When I turned onto their street, the scene was surreal. It was 4:30 in the morning. A large, unmarked box truck was idling in the driveway, its headlights cutting through the mist. The front door of the house was wide open. I screeched to a halt on the lawn, tearing up the grass I had paid a landscaper to seed. I jumped out of the car. The house was gutted. I ran inside. The living room was empty. No furniture, no rugs. Just the pale rectangles on the walls where pictures had hung. "Mom! Dad!" I screamed. I found them in the master bedroom. My mother was sitting on the floor, clutching a pillow, weeping silently. My father was standing by the window, staring out at the darkness, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. And there was Austin. He was standing in the middle of the room, holding a clipboard. He looked incredibly calm. He was wearing a clean polo shirt and holding a travel mug of coffee. He looked at me as I burst in, breathless and wet from the rain. He didn't look guilty. He looked annoyed. "Great," he said, checking his watch. "Here comes the drama." "What is happening?" I demanded, stepping toward him. "Where is their furniture? Why is there a truck outside?" Austin sighed, the sound of a patient parent dealing with a toddler. "We are moving. Scarlett, I told you, at 4 in the morning? It is the most efficient time to travel. Less traffic. You sold the house," I said. It wasn't a question. Austin shrugged. "It was a distressed asset. We liquidated. It's a temporary situation. I have a place lined up for them. A better place." I looked at my parents. My mother wouldn't look at me. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "did you sign the papers?" She sobbed harder. Austin stepped between us. He put a hand on my shoulder. I recoiled as if he had burned me. "Stop it, Scarlett," he said, his voice dropping to a soothing, menacing register. "You are upsetting them. Look at Mom. She's a wreck because of you. We are handling this. It is a family decision." "I bought this house," I whispered. "And you gave it to them," he said smoothly. "It was a gift, right? Or was it a loan? Because if it was a gift, it's theirs to do what they want with, and they wanted to leave." He smiled. It was a small, tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You are overreacting again. Scarlett, just go home. We will send you a postcard." I looked around the empty room. The walls echoed with the sound of my brother's voice. I looked at my parents, packing their lives into cardboard boxes in the middle of the night, too ashamed to speak to me. I realized then that the house wasn't just sold. It was gone, and so were they. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. The coldness from the boardroom returned, settling over me like a suit of armor. I looked at Austin. I looked at the clipboard in his hand. "Okay," I said softly. Austin blinked, surprised by my surrender. "Okay? Okay." I turned and walked out of the room, down the hallway, and out into the rain. I got into my car. I didn't drive away immediately. I watched them through the windshield. I watched my brother shepherd my parents into the cab of that truck like cattle. I watched them drive away. Then, I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out a small notepad and a pen. I wrote down the license plate number of the truck. I wrote down the time. I wrote down the name of the moving company on the side of the door. I wasn't the savior anymore. I was something else entirely. It took me 48 hours to find them. My brother, Austin, had gone dark. His phone went straight to voicemail, the kind that was full and could not accept new messages. My parents' phones were off. I drove by the empty house 4 times, staring at the blank windows, hoping to see a light or a shadow. But there was nothing. The neighbors had stopped waving. They looked at my car with suspicion now. as if the sudden vacuum of my family's departure had sucked the respectability right out of the property. I finally tracked them down through a credit alert on my father's joint account. A charge for a vending machine at a place called the Pines Extended Stay, located off the highway in a town 2 exits north. It was the kind of place that advertised weekly rates on a neon sign with burned-out letters. I pulled into the parking lot on a gray Thursday afternoon. The asphalt was cracked, with weeds growing through the fissures like stubborn veins. A rusted sedan was up on blocks 3 spaces down from my father's car. Seeing their sensible, 4-door Buick parked next to a dumpster overflowing with fast food wrappers made my chest tighten. It looked like a hostage. I went to the front desk. The clerk, a man with tired eyes and a name tag that just said, "Manager," didn't want to give me the room number until I slid a $20 bill across the laminate counter. "Room 114. He grunted. "Keep the noise down. We have people sleeping who work the night shift." I walked to the room. The door was metal, painted a peeling industrial beige. I didn't knock. I knew that if I knocked, Austin would check the peephole and tell them to be quiet. I knew how he operated. He thrived on the buffer of closed doors. I hit the door with the flat of my hand. Hard. "Open the door." "Austin." There was a scuffle inside, a hushed argument. Then the lock clicked, and the door opened a crack. Austin's face appeared, framed by the safety chain. He looked annoyed, but not afraid. He was chewing gum. "You are persistent. Scarlett, I will give you that. Open the door," I said, "or I call the police and tell them you are holding 2 vulnerable seniors against their will." He laughed. It was a dry, snapping sound. "Vulnerable seniors? They are our parents. Come on in. Drama queen." He undid the chain and swung the door wide. The room smelled of stale coffee and microwaved meals. It was a single room with 2 double beds and a kitchenette that consisted of a mini fridge and a hot plate. My parents were sitting on the edge of the bed furthest from the door. My mother was folding washcloths that didn't need folding. My father was staring at the television, which was muted. They looked small. That was the first thing that hit me. In the house, surrounded by their furniture and their memories, they had substance. Here, under the harsh light of a single bulb, they looked like refugees. "Scarlett," my mother whispered. She didn't stand up. I walked over and knelt in front of her. "Mom, why are you here? Why didn't you call me?" She looked at Austin. His shadow fell over us, long and heavy. "We are just getting settled," Austin said, walking to the kitchenette and leaning against the counter. "It is a transition period. The new place isn't ready yet." "What new place?" I stood up and faced him. "You said you had a place lined up. This is a motel." "Austin, this is where people stay when they have lost everything. It is temporary," my father barked from the bed. He finally looked at me, his eyes wet and angry. "Stop judging us. Scarlett, you judge everything. The house was too much work. The stairs were bad for my knees. The house was 1 story. Dad," I said. He faltered. "Well, the yard was too big." Austin found a buyer who wanted to move fast. We took the opportunity. I held out my hand to Austin. "Show me the papers." He blinked. "What papers?" "The closing documents, the sale agreement, the settlement statement. If you sold the house, there is a paper trail. I want to see where the money went. I want to see the numbers." Austin crossed his arms. "That is confidential financial information between Mom, Dad, and the buyer. You aren't on the title anymore, remember? You made sure to tell everyone it was their house, so it is their business." I looked at my mother. "Mom, how much did you sell it for?" She picked at the hem of her sweater. "Austin handled the negotiations. He got us a good deal. Cash, fast closing." "How much?" I pressed. She didn't answer. She looked at Austin again. I felt a cold realization settle in my gut. They didn't know. They had signed what he put in front of them, and they had no idea what the bottom line was. I saved them. "Scarlett," Austin said, his voice dropping to that reasonable, martyr tone he perfected in childhood. "You weren't here. You were in the city, making your millions, buying your fancy shoes. You didn't see the letters." "What letters?" "The foreclosure warnings." He lied, smoothly, effortlessly. I laughed. It was a sharp, incredulous sound. There were no foreclosure warnings. I paid the mortgage. I paid it every month. On the first, directly to the bank. I have the receipts on my phone right now. Austin didn't flinch. There were other debts. Scarlet, property taxes, liens, things they didn't tell you because they were ashamed, things they didn't want their perfect daughter to know about. He was weaponizing their shame. He was taking their silence and filling it with his own fiction. I looked at my father. Dad, is that true? Did you have liens? My father looked down at his hands. It got complicated. Scarlett, you don't understand. Money isn't the only thing that matters. You think writing a check solves everything. You think money equals love. The words hit me like a physical slap. You think money equals love. It was the accusation I feared most, the one I whispered to myself at 3 a.m, hearing it from him, while they sat in a motel room my brother had put them in, was devastating. Fine, I said. I stepped back. If you won't show me the papers, I will find them myself. Property records are public. Austin, you can't hide a deed transfer. I turned to leave. Don't come back until you can be supportive. Austin called after me. I walked out of the room. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely unlock my car. I sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, breathing through the panic. He had them. He had them trapped in a narrative where I was the villainous banker and he was the scrappy hero fighting off the wolves. I needed facts. Facts did not care about narratives. I drove straight to the county courthouse in Cedar Creek. The records division was in the basement, a room that smelled of dust and old toner. I filled out a request slip for the address. 405 Maple Drive. The clerk, a woman named Barbara who had worked there since I was in high school, handed me a printed file 10 minutes later. Here you go, honey, she said. Looks like that one just transferred on Monday. I took the pages to a wooden table and spread them out. The world narrowed down to the black and white data in front of me. Grantor, Robert and Linda Harris. Grantee, Blue Harbor Assets, LLC. Sale price, $185,000. I stared at the number. I had bought the house for $310,000 3 years ago. The market had gone up since then. The house was easily worth $350,000. He had sold it for nearly half its value. I looked at the grantee. Blue Harbor Assets, LLC. It was a nothing name. Generic, bland. The address for the LLC was a P.O. box in a strip mall 3 towns over. I flipped to the signature page. There they were. My parents' signatures. They looked shaky, but they were there. And below them, a witness signature. Austin Harris. I pulled out my phone and took photos of every page. Then I went to the deed transfer tax document. It listed the settlement agent, priority title and escrow. I left the courthouse and sat in my car. Googling Blue Harbor Assets LLC, no website, no LinkedIn, just a registration filing that led back to another LLC in Delaware. It was a shell game. I needed to know how the sale happened so fast. I looked up the listing agent on the MLS history. The house hadn't been listed on the open market. It was an off-market deal, entered into the system for statistical purposes only after the sale. The agent listed was a man named Greg Prentice. I knew Greg Prentice. He was a shark who put his face on shopping carts and bus benches. I drove to his office. It was a glass-fronted building on Main Street. I walked in, checking my reflection in the door. I looked professional, severe. I didn't look like a grieving daughter. I looked like a buyer. I asked for Greg. The receptionist said he was out showing a ranch, but his assistant, a young woman named Kaylee, was available. Kaylee led me into a small conference room. She looked eager. How can I help you? Are you looking to buy or sell? I am looking for an investment property. I lied. I saw you guys moved 405 Maple Drive recently. I drive by that house often. I was surprised to see it go so fast. I am looking for something similar. A distress sale, maybe? Kaylee nodded enthusiastically. Oh, that one. Yeah, that was a whirlwind. Greg is amazing at moving motivated inventory. Motivated? I asked, keeping my voice casual. She lowered her voice, leaning in. Super motivated. The sellers were in a real bind. The son called us and said they needed cash in 10 days or less. He said they were facing immediate medical bills or something. I don't remember the details. But he said, "Price isn't the priority. Speed is." I felt the blood drain from my face. Price isn't the priority. So Greg found a cash buyer? Yeah, one of his regulars. An investment group. They scooped it up. No inspection. No contingencies. The son was really pushing for it. He was calling the office 5 times a day. The son, I repeated. Did you ever talk to the owners? The parents? Kaylee frowned, thinking, I think they came in to sign. Yeah, they looked pretty out of it. Honestly, older folks, they just sat there and let the son point to the lines. It was sad, actually. But hey, we got it done. I thanked her and left. I felt sick. Austin hadn't just sold the house. He had orchestrated a fire sale, stripping over $100,000 of equity just to get his hands on the cash quickly. But where was the cash? If the house sold for $185,000 and there was no mortgage to pay off because I was the one paying it, that money should be in my parents' account. I drove back to the motel. I had to get into their bank account. I knew my father wouldn't give me the password, but my mother might. She was the weak link in Austin's chain. I waited in the parking lot until I saw Austin leave. He got into his car, a flashy rental that I suspected was being paid for with the house money, and drove off toward the highway. I ran to room 114. Mom, Dad, open up. It's me. My father opened the door. He looked exhausted. Where is your brother? He went out, I said, pushing past him. Mom, I need you to log into your bank account, right now. Why? She asked, shrinking back against the headboard. Because I just came from the courthouse. The house sold for $185,000. That money should be in your account. Is it there? My father scoffed. Of course it is there. Austin deposited it. He showed us the receipt. Show me. I said. My father hesitated. He walked to the small table where his laptop sat closed. He opened it and typed in his password with slow, hunt and peck fingers. He navigated to the bank website. He stared at the screen. Then he squinted. He leaned closer. That isn't right, he muttered. I looked over his shoulder. The balance was $4,000. Where is the rest? I asked, my voice deadly calm. My father clicked on transaction history. It was a bloodbath. Wire transfer. Outgoing, $50,000. Wire transfer. Outgoing, $45,000. Cash. Withdrawal, $5,000. Debit purchase, luxury auto rentals. Debit purchase, electronic superstore, and then the overdraft fees, $35. The account had been drained as fast as the money hit it. This must be a mistake, my father stammered. His hands were shaking so bad he couldn't use the mouse. Austin said he moved it to a savings account, a high-yield savings account, to protect it from taxes. Dad, look at the destination of these wires, I said, pointing to the screen. Crypto Exchange LLC, Sportsbet Online. These aren't savings accounts. My mother started to cry. It was a low, keening sound. He said he was handling it. He said we didn't have to worry about math anymore. I sat down on the bed next to her. Mom, did you sign anything else? Besides the deed? Did you sign a paper that gave Austin permission to use your bank account? She wiped her eyes. We signed a lot of papers. Scarlett, at the title company, Austin brought a notary to the house the night before, too. A notary? I asked. What did you sign with the notary? My father sat down heavily in the desk chair. He looked gray. It was a power of attorney, he whispered. I closed my eyes. A power of attorney. The nuclear codes. Why? Dad? Why would you sign that? He said it was just for the closing, my father shouted, his voice cracking. He said it would reduce the stress, so we wouldn't have to go to the office for every little signature. He said it was standard procedure. We didn't read it. Scarlett, we trusted him. He is our son, and now he has legal authority to drain you dry. I said. The silence in the room was suffocating. The TV flickered silently in the corner. My parents looked like children who had broken a vase and were waiting for the punishment. But I wasn't going to punish them. I was terrified for them. "Pack your bags," I said. Standing up. "What?" My mother looked up. "We are leaving. You are coming to my apartment in the city. We are going to the bank first thing in the morning to revoke the POA and freeze the accounts. But we have to leave before Austin gets back." My father shook his head. No, we can't. Dad, look at the screen. He stole everything. We can't go with you." "Scarlett," he said, his voice trembling but stubborn. "Why not?" Because then we are just a burden on you." I stared at him. "A burden? Dad, you are living in a motel. You have $4,000 left to your name. You are already in crisis. Let me help you." "No," he said. "If we go with you." Then Austin was right. "Right about what?" "That you want to control us," he said. "He told us you would try to do this. He said you would come in with your spreadsheets and your logic and try to move us into your world, where we don't fit. He said you want to make us feel small." I felt like I was screaming underwater. "He stole your house. He stole your retirement. I am trying to give you a roof over your heads and make us feel like charity cases," my father yelled. "At least Austin treats us like adults who can make decisions. Even if it was a bad decision, it was ours." The door handle turned. We all froze. The door opened and Austin walked in. He held a pizza box in one hand and a 6-pack of beer in the other. He stopped when he saw me. He looked at the laptop screen, then at our faces. He didn't look scared. He looked disappointed. "I told you she would upset you," he said to my parents. He walked over and set the pizza on the bed. "Look at you. Mom, you are shaking. Did she yell at you? She showed us the bank account." "Austin," my father said, his voice weak. "The money is gone." Austin sighed. He opened a beer. "It is not gone. Dad, it is invested. I told you. It takes a few days to clear into the new accounts. Scarlett just doesn't understand modern finance. She thinks everything has to be in a checking account earning 0% interest." He looked at me. "You are scaring them. Scarlett, you are making them think they are broke. That is cruel." I looked at him. I saw the absolute lack of empathy in his eyes. He didn't care that they were terrified. He only cared that he stayed in control. "I am offering them a place to stay. Austin, a real home, not this dump. See?" Austin gestured to them with the beer bottle. "She wants to take you to the city. She wants to put you in her guest room and tell you when to eat and when to sleep. She wants to lock you up. Here, you are free. We are a team here." My mother looked at me, then at Austin. She looked at the pizza. She looked at the terrifying unknown of the city and the familiar comfort of her son's lies. "We will stay here. Scarlett," she whispered, "just for now, until the money clears." I looked at my father. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Please leave, Scarlett," Austin said. "We are having dinner." I realized then that this wasn't just financial fraud. It was a kidnapping of the mind. He had convinced them that my stability was a cage and his chaos was freedom. If I forced them into the car, they would hate me. They would run back to him the first chance they got. I had to stop playing the game he wanted me to play. I had to stop reacting. "Okay," I said. I picked up my purse. "Okay?" Austin asked. Suspicious. "I can't force you to let me help you." I said to my parents. I walked to the door. "But Dad, keep watching that account." I walked out. I sat in my car in the parking lot. I didn't drive away this time. I opened my glove compartment and took out a fresh notebook. I clicked my pen. I wrote the date. I wrote the time. I wrote, Event 1. Parents confirm signing POA without reading. Confirmed by verbal admission. I wrote, Event 2. Bank records show immediate dissipation of assets to gambling and crypto sites. I wrote, Event 3. Austin Harris admits to investing funds, contradicting bank statements. I opened my phone and took screenshots of the text messages Austin had sent me over the last month, the ones where he claimed he was handling everything. I saved them to a cloud drive folder titled Evidence. Then I dialed the number of a real estate attorney I knew in Seattle. A woman named Elena, who was known for being a shark in civil litigation. It was 7 o'clock at night. She answered on the second ring. Scarlett, is everything okay? No. Elena, I said, staring at the neon sign of the motel reflected in the puddle on the asphalt. I need to hire you. I need to sue my brother. And I need to know how to pierce a corporate veil on a shell company. I wasn't the daughter anymore. I wasn't the sister. I was the plaintiff. And I was going to burn his little kingdom to the ground, one piece of paper at a time. Elena sat behind a desk that looked like a slab of black ice. She was one of the most expensive real estate litigators in Seattle, a woman who treated emotion like a contaminant in a clean room. She tapped a manicured fingernail on the stack of documents I had slapped down in front of her. It is ugly. Scarlett, she said, her voice devoid of sympathy. It is morally bankrupt. But is it a crime? That is the question you are paying me $400 an hour to answer. I leaned forward in the leather chair. The leather creaked, a sound that seemed too loud in the silent office. He sold a $350,000 house for $185,000. Elena. He pocketed the cash. He used a power of attorney my parents didn't understand. How is that not fraud? Elena sighed and opened the folder containing the deed transfer. Because the law loves a signature, she said. And you have 3 of them here, your father, your mother, and the notary who witnessed them. The power of attorney document is broad. I have read it. It grants your brother, Austin Harris, the authority to sell, lease, or encumber real property. It grants him the authority to manage banking. It grants him the authority to make gifts. She looked up at me over the rim of her glasses. He didn't forge their names. Scarlett. He tricked their minds. That is a civil dispute, not a criminal slam dunk. If we go to court, he will argue that they were distressed. They wanted to sell fast, and he executed their wishes. He will say the money was used for their benefit, or that the withdrawals were gifts they authorized. Unless we can prove he held a gun to their heads, or that they were medically incompetent at the moment of signing. This is a he said, she said, and judges hate family squabbles. They get messy. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. I had assumed the truth would be enough. I had assumed that pointing at the theft would make the police appear with handcuffs. So he just gets away with it? I asked. He leaves them homeless and walks away with the equity I built for them? Not necessarily. Elena said. She flipped to the closing statement. But we need precision. We don't need a story about a bad son. We need a technical failure. We need to find a procedural crack in the foundation of this sale. The price is suspiciously low. The buyer is a shell. The timeline was 48 hours. Somewhere in that rush, someone cut a corner. Find the corner. Scarlett. And then we can pry the whole thing open. I left her office with a new mission. I wasn't looking for justice anymore. I was looking for a mistake. The next morning, I took a personal day from work. I dressed not in my corporate armor, but in a soft cardigan and jeans. I wanted to look harmless. I wanted to look like a confused daughter trying to sort out paperwork. I drove to the office of Priority Title and Escrow. It was located in a strip mall next to a dry cleaner. The blinds were drawn, and the sign on the door said, "Appointment only." I didn't have an appointment. I walked in anyway. The reception area was empty except for a young woman sitting behind a high counter. She was typing furiously on a phone, her chewing gum snapping in rhythm. She looked up, annoyed. "Can I help you?" "Hi," I said, keeping my voice soft and tremulous. "I am Scarlett Harris. My parents closed on a property here last week, 405 Maple Drive." She stopped chewing. Her eyes darted to a closed door behind her. "Oh, the Harris file." "Yes," I said. "I am just trying to help them with their taxes. They seem to have misplaced their copy of the identity verification forms. You know, the Patriot Act stuff. Copies of their driver's licenses. I just need to grab a copy for their accountant." The girl hesitated. She looked at the closed door again. "The file is archived, ma'am." "It is closed. It has been 3 days." I said, "It can't be deep storage. Please, my father is very elderly and he is panicking. It would take you 2 minutes." She bit her lip. She was young, maybe 22. She didn't look like a conspirator. She looked like someone who was underpaid and afraid of her boss. Hold on, she whispered. She clicked around on her computer. She opened a digital folder. I watched her reflection in the glass partition. She frowned. That is weird, she muttered. What is weird? I asked, leaning in. She turned the screen slightly away from me. The ID forms aren't scanned in. The closing checklist says remote notary verification, but usually we have the photocopies of the licenses attached to the file. It is just blank. My heart hammered against my ribs. A procedural crack. Who was the notary? I asked. She glanced at the screen. It was an independent, Mark S. Rylance. He isn't one of our regulars. The agent, Mr. Prentice, brought him in. Just then, the office door opened. A heavy-set man in a cheap suit walked out. He looked at me, then at the girl. "Can I help you?" he boomed. I straightened up. "No, thank you. I was just leaving." I walked out before he could ask for my name. I sat in my car and wrote down the name Mark S. Rylance. If they hadn't verified my parents' IDs properly, if they had just rubber-stamped the forms because Austin told them to, then the sale was technically invalid. The Patriot Act was strict about knowing your customer. I had a thread. Now I had to pull it. That night, I turned my apartment into a war room. I taped the timeline to my living room wall. I printed out the corporate filings for Blue Harbor Assets, LLC. I started searching for the name of the registered agent for the LLC. It was a lawyer in Delaware, a dead end. But then I searched for the address of the LLC's principal office. It was a P.O. box in a strip mall in Tacoma. I ran a search for other businesses registered to that same P.O. box. The results populated the screen. Red Brick Holdings, Zenith Capital Partners, Quick Flip Ventures. It was a network, a hydra. I started clicking on the filings for each of these companies. They all listed different managers, but the handwriting on the formation documents looked identical. And then, I saw it. On the filing for Zenith Capital Partners, the notary who witnessed the incorporation was Mark S. Rylance. On the filing for Red Brick Holdings, the registered agent was Greg Prentice. The circle was closed. The real estate agent, the notary, and the buyer were all sleeping in the same bed. This wasn't just a bad deal Austin had stumbled into. It was a predatory ecosystem designed to strip equity from desperate people, and Austin had walked our parents right into its mouth. Or maybe he had rung the dinner bell. I needed to know where the money went. The bank statements I had seen in the motel showed $50,000 wired to Crypto Exchange LLC, but there was another wire for $45,000 that I had glazed over in my initial panic. It was labeled simply DRS Service. I had assumed it was a medical bill. Doctor something. I Googled DRS Service. Nothing. I went back to the bank statement. I looked at the routing number associated with the wire. I plugged it into a bank finder tool. It belonged to a credit collection agency called Debt Recovery Solutions. My parents didn't have $45,000 in bad debt. They had a mortgage I paid and a credit card with a $2,000 limit. I called the collection agency. It was 10 o'clock at night, but their automated system was running. I punched in the reference number from the wire transfer, 88493. "Please wait while we locate your account," the robotic voice said. "Hello? Austin. Your balance is currently 0. Thank you for your payment." I froze. The phone felt like ice in my hand. Austin. He hadn't invested the money. He hadn't lost it all on gambling. He had used nearly $50,000 of our parents' home equity to pay off his own bad debts. He had washed his slate clean with their blood. I drove to the motel the next morning. It was raining again, a relentless gray sheet that matched my mood. I found Austin in the parking lot, smoking a cigarette under the overhang. He looked relaxed. He was wearing a new leather jacket that I knew, with absolute certainty, had been bought with the house money. He smiled when he saw me. "Back again? You are like a bad penny." "Scarlett." I walked up to him. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood 2 feet away from him, close enough to smell the stale tobacco and the expensive cologne he used to mask it. Reference number 88493. I said. Austin's smile didn't drop, but it froze. The corners of his mouth twitched. "What are you talking about?" "Debt Recovery Solutions." I said, "You wired $45,000 to them from Mom and Dad's account on Tuesday. The automated system thanked you by name. Austin." He took a drag of the cigarette. His hand was shaking. "Just a little. I don't know what you mean. That was for Dad. He had some old medical bills. I consolidated them. Don't lie to me," I said, my voice low. "I know it was your debt. I know about the LLC network. I know about Mark Rylance and Greg Prentice. I know you walked them into a slaughterhouse so you could pay off your mistakes." He threw the cigarette on the ground and crushed it with his heel. The calm facade cracked, revealing the snarling, desperate creature underneath. "You think you are so smart," he hissed. "You think you can just swoop in and play detective. You have no idea what pressure is. Scarlett, you sit in your glass tower and judge. I needed that money. I was in trouble, real trouble." "So you stole their house?" "I didn't steal it. They signed. They wanted to help me. Did they know they were paying your collection agency? Did you tell them that specific detail?" Austin stepped closer. He loomed over me, using his height to intimidate. "If you expose this, Scarlett, you don't just hurt me, you hurt them." "How?" I asked. "Because they signed the wire authorization," he said, a cruel smile returning to his face. I made sure of it. I put the paper in front of them and said it was for the moving company. They signed it. If you go to the police and say this was fraud, you are saying Mom and Dad committed bank fraud. You are saying they were complicit. Do you want to see Dad in a deposition? Do you want to see Mom being grilled by the IRS? I stared at him. He was holding them hostage. He had woven them so tightly into his crime that I couldn't cut him out without bleeding them. "You are a monster," I whispered. He laughed. "I am a survivor. And I am the one taking care of them right now, so unless you want to blow up their lives completely, you will get in your car and go away." I turned and walked toward the motel room. "Where are you going?" he shouted. "To talk to my parents," I said. The room was stiflingly hot. The heater was cranked up to 80 degrees. My parents were sitting at the small table, eating cereal out of plastic cups. They looked up when I entered. They looked terrified. They had seen me arguing with Austin through the window. "Scarlett," my mother said, her voice trembling, "please, don't start." I sat down on the bed. I looked at them. I really looked at them. I saw the lines of exhaustion on my father's face. I saw the way my mother's hands wouldn't stop moving. "Did you know?" I asked. "Know what?" my father asked, looking at his cereal. "That he was in debt, that he used the money to pay off a collection agency." The silence stretched out, long and painful. My father put his spoon down. "We knew he had troubles," he said softly. "Troubles? Dad, he took $50,000. That isn't trouble. That is theft. He is trying." "Scarlett!" my mother cried out. She stood up, her face flushed. "He is trying to get back on his feet. He promised he would pay us back when his settlement comes in." "What settlement?" I asked. "There is no settlement. That is another lie." "Stop it," she screamed. "Just stop it. We know? Okay? We know." The room went dead silent. My mother covered her mouth, as if she hadn't meant to say it. I stared at her. "You know?" She sank back into the chair, defeated. "We know he lies. Scarlett, we know the business deals aren't real. We know he borrows money he can't return." "Then why?" I whispered. "Why did you let him sell the house? Why are you sitting in this motel protecting him?" "Because he is our son," my father said. His voice was cracked and broken. "And because if we admit that he did this to us, if we admit that he stole from us, then we have to admit that we failed. We have to admit that we raised a predator. We can't do that," my mother whispered. "We can't live with that. So we pretend. We pretend it was a bad market. We pretend it was a mistake. We pretend he is helping. Because the alternative is looking at him and seeing a criminal." I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time. It wasn't anger anymore. It was heartbreak. They were sacrificing their survival to preserve an illusion. They were lighting themselves on fire to keep him warm, just so they didn't have to admit he was the one holding the match. I stood up. I felt the old instinct rising, the urge to fix it, to write a check, to move them into my apartment and pay for everything and let them keep their illusion. It would be so easy. I could cover the 50,000. I could cover the rent. I could let them pretend. But I looked at my father's slumped shoulders. I looked at the fear in my mother's eyes. If I fixed this, I was just another enabler. I was just the bank of last resort. I took a deep breath. I am done. I said. My parents looked up. I am done paying for this. I said. I canceled the recurring transfer this morning. I am not paying for his rental car anymore. I am not paying for this motel room. Scarlett, you can't. My mother gasped. We have nothing. Then ask Austin. I said. Ask the man who is handling it. I can't leave you like this. I said, my voice shaking. I will help you. I will hire a lawyer. I will fight to get the house back. But I will not pay for the lie. I will not give you one single cent as long as you are covering for him. If you want my help, you have to tell the truth. My father looked at me with something like hate. You are abandoning us. No, I said. I am refusing to be a hostage. I walked to the door. I knew what I had to do. The law needed a technicality. But I needed something more. I needed leverage. I needed Austin to get greedy one more time. I opened the door and found Austin standing there, listening. He smirked. Cut them off? That is cold. Scarlett, even for you. I looked at him. I let my shoulders slump. I let the fight drain out of my face. I made myself look small. I made myself look defeated. You win, Austin, I said quietly. He blinked. What? I am tired. I said, I can't fight you and them. If they want to be with you, they can be with you, but I can't let them live in a motel. It looks bad. It looks bad for me, at my job, if my parents are homeless. Austin narrowed his eyes. So what are you saying? I sighed. I have some money, not a lot, but enough for a down payment on a condo. Something small. In the city, maybe, or near here, if that is what they want. Austin's eyes lit up. I could see the gears turning. New money, new pot. You want to buy them a place? He asked. I nodded. But I can't be involved in the paperwork. I am too busy at work. I can't take the time off to deal with agents and inspections. I looked at him, forcing a look of reluctant respect. You move that house fast. Austin, I will give you that. You know how to close a deal. He puffed out his chest. Just a fraction. I have connections. If I wire the down payment, could you handle it? I asked. Could you find them a place and get it done? I just want them out of this motel. I just want peace. Austin smiled. It was the smile of a wolf who sees a lamb lie down. I can handle it. Scarlett, I can find them a great deal. I can probably get something off market. Really maximize your cash. Great. I said, I will look at the numbers tonight. Let's talk tomorrow. I walked to my car. I didn't look back. I got in, locked the doors, and started the engine. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. He took the bait. He thought I was surrendering. He thought I was the weak, check-writing sister who would pay anything to make the problem go away. He didn't know that I was going to be recording every phone call. He didn't know that I was going to trace every email. He didn't know that I wasn't going to buy a house. I was buying a crime scene. And this time, I was going to make sure the handcuffs fit. The phone rang at 8 o'clock the next morning. It was Austin. I found it, he said. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was sleeping. The greed in his voice was so potent, I could almost feel it vibrating through the speaker. That was fast. I said, cradling my coffee cup in the quiet of my kitchen. I had not slept. I had spent the night staring at the wall where I had taped up the timeline of his betrayal. It is perfect, Austin said. It is a condo in a new development near the river. 2 bedrooms, ground floor, so no stairs for Dad. The seller is a friend of a friend. He needs to offload it quickly because he is moving overseas. It is an off-market deal. Scarlett, we can get it for $200,000 if we move today. Today? I asked, injecting a note of hesitant anxiety into my voice. That seems very fast. I would need to see it. I would need to get an inspection. Scarlett, listen to me. he cut in, his voice dropping to that confidential, "Trust me" tone. "You asked me to handle this. You said you were too busy. If we wait for an inspection, we lose the deal. This guy has cash offers lining up. I pulled a massive favor just to get us to the front of the line. Do you want Mom and Dad out of that motel or not?" I closed my eyes. It was the exact same script. The urgency, the phantom other buyers, the manufactured crisis. "I want them out," I said. "Then trust me. Wire the deposit to the title company I send you. I will handle the rest. I will take the papers to Mom and Dad. You don't even have to leave your office. Send me the details," I said. 10 minutes later, an email landed in my inbox. The subject line was "New Start." It contained wiring instructions for a company called River City Settlements and a purchase agreement for a property that, upon a quick Google search, turned out to be a patch of dirt where a foundation had barely been poured. I forwarded the email immediately to Elena and to the private investigator she had recommended, a man named Marcus Vance who charged $200 an hour and had zero online presence. Then I replied to Austin, "Looks great. I am moving funds now. Will take 24 hours to clear." I wasn't moving funds. I was buying time. Marcus Vance met me at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office later that afternoon. He was a small man, unassuming, the kind of person you would forget the moment he walked out of a room. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "You were right," he said softly. "It is an ecosystem." I opened the envelope. Inside was a spreadsheet that looked like a spider web. "Your brother isn't the architect," Marcus said. "He is the intake valve. Explain." Marcus pointed to a name in the center of the web. "Greg Prentice. Prentice runs a network of shell companies," Marcus explained. "Blue Harbor Assets, Red Brick Holdings, River City Settlements, they are all him. He finds distressed properties, usually owned by elderly people or people in debt. He uses a network of bird dogs, scouts, to find the leads. Your brother is acting as a bird dog." "And the notary?" I asked. "Mark Rylance. Rylance is on the payroll, essentially. He notarizes anything they put in front of him. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't check IDs. He just stamps the seal so the county clerk accepts the paperwork." Marcus flipped a page. "Here's the kicker. The house your parents sold for $185,000? Prentice already has a hard money loan against it for $300,000. He cashed out the equity the second the deed recorded. He is going to flip it to a developer for $350,000 by next week. Your brother got $50,000 to pay off his debts. Prentice got $100,000 in instant profit, and your parents got homeless." I stared at the numbers. It was efficient, it was brutal, and it was repeatable. "Can we prove Rylance is dirty?" I asked. Marcus nodded. "But we need to catch him in the act." I pulled out my phone. "I have an idea." I set the meeting with Mark Rylance for 5 o'clock that evening. I used a burner phone and a fake name, Sarah Jenkins. I told him I needed a power of attorney notarized urgently for my grandmother who was in the hospital. I told him I would pay triple his standard fee if he could meet me at the Starbucks on 4th Street. He agreed without hesitation. I arrived early. I sat in a corner booth where the security camera from the coffee shop had a clear angle. I placed my phone on the table, face down, recording audio. Rylance walked in at 5 sharp. He was a nervous-looking man with sweat stains on his collar. He carried a leather satchel that looked worn. "Sarah?" he asked. Looking around, I waved. "Over here." He sat down. He didn't order coffee. He just pulled out his stamp. "You have the document?" he asked. I slid a generic power of attorney form across the table. It was filled out with nonsense names. Jane Doe granting power to John Smith. My grandmother is in the car. I lied. She is very sick. She can't really come inside. And she forgot her ID at the nursing home, but I have a picture of it on my phone. Is that okay? Rylance barely looked at me. He looked at the document. He looked at the cash I had placed on the table. $300 in 20s. Technically, I need to see her, he mumbled, and I need the physical ID. Please, I said, pushing the cash closer to him. It is an emergency. She trusts me. I just need to pay her bills. Rylance looked at the money. He looked at the door. He licked his lips. He picked up the stamp. Fine, he said. But if anyone asks, she was sitting right here. He stamped the document. He signed his name. He didn't ask to see the phone. He didn't look out the window to see if a grandmother actually existed. He took the cash and shoved it into his pocket. Thank you. Mark, I said. I picked up the document. I picked up my phone. By the way, I said, my voice dropping the nervous act and returning to my normal, cold register. My name isn't Sarah. It is Scarlett Harris. You notarized a deed for my parents, Robert and Linda Harris, last week. Rylance froze. The color drained from his face so fast, he looked like he might faint. I don't know who that is, he stammered. You do? I said, and you just proved to me that your stamp is for sale. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just held up the phone. I have this recorded. Mark. And the shop cameras have you taking the bribe. You are going to hear from my attorney. I walked out. He didn't follow me. He sat there, staring at the empty table, realizing that his easy money just became a prison sentence. The evidence was mounting, but I needed to stop the bleeding. I went home and logged into the Postal Service website. I entered my parents' old address and their names. Status: forwarding active, forwarding address. P.O. Box 494, Tacoma. W.A., the same P.O. box as the shell companies. Austin hadn't just moved them. He had intercepted their lives. He was routing their bank statements, their IRS notices, their pension letters, everything, to a box he controlled. He wasn't just hiding the theft. He was curating their reality. I checked their email accounts next. My mother used a simple password, her cat's name and the year she was born. I tried to log in. Password incorrect. I clicked, forgot password. Recovery email sent to Austin, Harris, bizgmail.com. He had locked them out. He had digital custody of them. They couldn't see the warnings from the bank. They couldn't see the emails from their friends. They were living in a silo he had built, fed only the information he wanted them to have. It was psychological captivity. I knew then that I couldn't just sue him. I had to break his hold on them, and I couldn't do it by yelling. I had to do it by offering them a way out that didn't feel like a surrender. I called my father. I knew he wouldn't answer if he thought I was calling to fight. Dad, I said to his voicemail, I am not calling to argue about the house. I want to take you and Mom to lunch. Just lunch. No Austin. Just us. I miss you. Please. I waited. 2 hours later, he called back. His voice was weary. Just lunch? He asked. Just lunch. I promised. There's a diner near the motel. The Bluebird. Meet me there in an hour. The Bluebird diner smelled of bacon grease and stale coffee. My parents were sitting in a booth by the window when I arrived. They looked fragile. My mother was wearing a sweater that I recognized. I had bought it for her 3 Christmases ago. It had a small stain on the cuff now. I slid into the booth opposite them. I didn't bring documents. I didn't bring the timeline. I just ordered coffee. We ate in silence for the first 10 minutes. The clatter of silverware felt deafening. How is the motel? I asked gently. It is fine, my mother said quickly. The maid comes twice a week. Austin says he found a condo, my father added, looking at me with a mixture of hope and defiance. He says you are helping with the down payment. That is good of you. Scarlett, I put my fork down. I am not buying the condo. Dad, the hope vanished, replaced by instant anger. My father threw his napkin on the table. You lied? You told him you would help. He was so happy. Scarlett, he thought you were finally on the team. I am on the team, I said, keeping my voice low and steady. I am on your team. But Austin isn't. I reached into my purse. I didn't pull out a lawsuit. I pulled out a single piece of paper. It was a printout of the email recovery screen showing Austin's email address as the owner of my mother's account. Mom, when was the last time you checked your email? I asked. She frowned. I don't know. The password stopped working. Austin said the server was down. The server isn't down. I said, he changed the password. He changed the recovery address to his own. He is reading your emails. Mom, he is intercepting your mail. He isn't protecting you from stress. He is preventing you from seeing the truth. I slid the paper toward her. I'm not telling you this to make you feel stupid. I said, I am telling you this because you are adults. You are capable people. You raised 2 children. You worked for 40 years. You deserve to have access to your own lives. My father looked at the paper. He didn't want to look at it, but he couldn't look away. Why would he do that? He whispered. Because control is how he keeps the money, I said. And because he is afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if you saw the numbers, the real numbers, you would stop loving him. My mother made a small, choked sound. She put her hand over her mouth. I leaned across the table. I took her other hand. I know why you do it, I said softly. I figured it out. You help him because he is the one who needs you. He is the one who crashes. He is the one who brings the drama and the excitement and the crisis. He has that spark, right? That charisma. My mother nodded, tears spilling over. He was always so bright. She whispered, so full of life. We just wanted him to succeed. And I am the steady one, I said. I am the one who pays the bills. I am the one who fixes the leaks. I am the boring one. No, Scarlett. My father protested weakly. Not boring. Reliable. Reliable, I repeated. It felt like a heavy coat I had been wearing for 30 years. You treat my reliability like a utility, like electricity. You don't thank the light switch for working. You only notice it when it breaks. But Austin is a firework. You clap when he goes off, even if he burns the house down. They stared at me. The truth of it hung in the air between us, raw and undeniable. We didn't mean to make you feel that way. My mother said, we thought you were okay. You're always okay. Scarlett, you don't need us. I felt a crack in my chest, a deep, seismic shift. I do need you. I said, I need you to be my parents. I don't need you to pay my rent, but I need you to not sell the house I bought you and give the money to the person who hurts you. I need you to respect me enough to tell me the truth. I pulled my hand back. I am giving you a choice today. I have filed a petition to revoke the power of attorney. I have a lawyer ready to freeze the account so Austin can't take the last $4,000. I can stop this, but I need you to stand with me. I need you to say, out loud, that you want your agency back. And if we don't, my father asked, then I walk away. I said, and I mean it this time, I won't watch him destroy you. If you choose the lie, you choose it alone. My father looked at my mother. They had a silent conversation, a communication built on 50 years of marriage. I saw the fear in their eyes, the fear of admitting they had been fools, the fear of losing their son's love. But then my father looked at the printout again, the digital lock on his wife's life. He reached out and took my mother's hand. He changed your password. Linda, he said, he stole your letters. My mother wiped her face. She sat up straighter. She looked at me. What do we have to do? She asked. We went straight from the diner to the courthouse. I didn't give them time to reconsider. I didn't give Austin time to intercept them. Elena met us there. She had the documents drafted. Emergency motion for temporary restraining order regarding assets. Revocation of power of attorney. Demand for accounting. My parents signed. Their hands shook. But they signed. When the clerk stamped the papers, I felt a wave of relief so strong it almost knocked me over. It was done. The legal shield was up. But the war was just starting. We dropped the revocation off at the bank on the way back. The branch manager, a severe woman who seemed horrified by the story I briefly outlined, immediately froze the accounts and flagged Austin's name. We drove my parents to my apartment. I set them up in the guest room. I told them to turn off their phones, but I couldn't turn off mine. At 6 o'clock, the explosion happened. It started with a text from Austin. You kidnapped them? Really? You are sick. Then a voicemail. I went to the bank. Scarlett, you froze the account? That is their money. They need to eat. You are controlling them. You are doing exactly what you accused me of. Then, the social blast. My phone started buzzing with notifications from Facebook. I opened the app. Austin had posted a long, rambling status update. Please pray for my parents. My sister Scarlett has taken them from their home and is restricting their access to their own finances. She has always been jealous of our relationship, but this is a new low. Elder abuse is real. Folks, if anyone sees Robert or Linda, please let me know. I am worried sick. Comments were already rolling in from distant cousins and old neighbors. Oh my God, that is terrible. I always knew she was cold. Do you need help? Austin? Call the police. I read them in the kitchen, the blue light of the phone illuminating the dark countertop. It was a masterclass in manipulation. He was flipping the narrative in real time. He knew he couldn't win in court, so he was trying to win in the court of public opinion. He was trying to shame me into submission. My Aunt Linda called. I answered. How could you? She demanded. Austin is crying. He says you locked them in your apartment. I hung up. I walked into the living room. My parents were watching television. They looked safer, but sadder. They didn't know about the Facebook post yet. I decided not to show them. Not tonight. I went back to my laptop. I had to focus on the property. The PI. Marcus had said the house was about to be flipped. If Blue Harbor Assets sold the house to a third party, a legitimate buyer who didn't know about the fraud, it would be gone forever. The law protected bona fide purchasers for value. If a nice young couple bought that house next week, I could never get it back. I would only be able to sue Austin for the money, and he had already spent it. I needed to stop the sale. I was drafting an email to Elena about filing a lis pendens, a notice of pending litigation that would cloud the title and prevent a sale, when I heard the mail slot in my front door clatter. It was late. The mail didn't run at 8 p.m. I walked to the door. There was a plain white envelope on the floor. No stamp, no return address, just my name, Scarlett, written in block letters. I opened the door and looked out into the hallway. Empty. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a photocopy of an internal email. From Greg Prentice. To Mark Rylance. Subject, 4:05. Maple. Urgent. Flip is scheduled for Friday. Buyer is lined up. Get the docs ready. We need to wash this one fast. The daughter is sniffing around. If we don't close by Friday, we might have to dump it back to the shell to avoid exposure. Make sure the repair invoices are padded to justify the price jump. Friday. Today was Wednesday. I looked at the bottom of the page. Someone had scrawled a note in blue ink. They know you are watching. They are going to scrub the files. You have 36 hours before the asset is gone. P.S. Your brother is just the hook. Prentice is the fisherman. I stared at the note. A whistleblower. Someone inside Prentice's operation had a conscience, or maybe a grudge. I ran to the phone and called Elena. Pick up, pick up, pick up, I hissed. She answered on the fourth ring. We have a problem. I said, what is it? I just got a leak. Prentice is flipping the house on Friday. 48 hours. That is too fast, Elena said, her voice sharp. We can't get a hearing for an injunction that fast. The courts are backed up. We have to. I said, if that sale closes, my parents lose the house forever. Scarlett, even if we file the lis pendens tomorrow morning, it takes time to index. If they have a buyer lined up in a corrupt title company, they can push it through before the record updates. Then we need to stop it physically. I said, what do you mean? I mean, we need to blow up the deal. We need to make sure that whoever is buying that house on Friday knows it is radioactive. And we need to get to Austin. I added, why Austin? Because he is the hook, I said, reading the note again. And if the fisherman is cutting the line to save himself, the hook is going to get left behind. I hung up. I looked at the timeline on my wall. The lines were connecting. The picture was clear. Austin wasn't the mastermind. He was a patsy. Prentice had used him to steal the house, and now Prentice was going to sell it, take the profit, and leave Austin holding the bag for the fraud. When the dust settled, Prentice would be a ghost behind a dissolved LLC, and Austin would be the one with his name on the forged documents. My brother was a monster. Yes, but he was about to be eaten by a much bigger monster. I grabbed my keys. I wasn't going to save him. I was going to use him. The conference room table in Elena's office was no longer a surface for coffee cups or casual conversation. It had become a battlefield map. We had moved past the emotional phase of the crisis, the tears, the shock, the disbelief, and entered the cold, hard phase of forensic reconstruction. "We are done calling this a family dispute," Elena said, pacing the length of the room. Her heels clicked against the hardwood with a rhythm that sounded like a metronome counting down. "As of this morning, we are reframing this entire narrative. This is not a brother taking advantage of a sister. This is a complex fraud scheme involving a licensed real estate agent, a notary public, and a straw man buyer, with your brother acting as the unindicted co-conspirator." I looked at the whiteboard where we had taped the flow of money. It was undeniable. Event 1. Power of attorney signed under duress and misrepresentation. Event 2. Deed transferred to Blue Harbor Assets, LLC, for $185,000. Event 3. Immediate hard money loan recorded against the property for $300,000. Event 4. Disbursement of funds to shell entities controlled by Greg Prentice. Event 5. Kickback of $45,000 to Austin Harris's debt collectors. It wasn't messy. It was surgical. We need to depersonalize it, I said, staring at the web of transactions. If we go into court crying about betrayal, the judge will tell us to go to mediation. If we go in with racketeering, the judge will listen. Exactly, Elena said. She dropped a heavy binder on the table. "This is our complaint. We are filing for an emergency injunction to stop the resale. But we are also filing a complaint with the Department of Licensing against Prentice and the Secretary of State against Rylance. We are going nuclear on their licenses." I felt a grim satisfaction. Licenses were their lifeblood. If I couldn't get the money back immediately, I could at least stop them from doing this to the next elderly couple. "But we have a weak point," Elena warned, tapping the photo of Austin on the whiteboard. "Your brother. He is the bridge. If he testifies that your parents knew what they were doing, that they were fully informed participants in this scheme, we lose the fraud claim against the title company. We need him to flip, or we need to neutralize him." I looked at Austin's face in the photo. It was a picture from a Thanksgiving 3 years ago. He looked happy. He looked innocent. "He won't flip," I said. "He is too terrified of Prentice." "Then we have to force him," Elena said. My phone buzzed an hour later. It was Austin. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then he texted, "We need to talk. Person to person. No lawyers. I have a solution." I showed the text to Elena. She raised an eyebrow. "Go," she said, "but wear a wire." I met him at a park halfway between the city and the motel. It was a gray, blustery day. The kind where the wind whips your hair across your face and stings your eyes. Austin was sitting on a bench near the duck pond, hunched inside his leather jacket. He looked smaller than I remembered. The swagger was gone, replaced by a twitchy, nervous energy. He didn't stand up when I approached. "You look tired." "Scarlett," he said. I sat on the other end of the bench, leaving 2 feet of cold wood between us. "I am tired. Austin, I am tired of cleaning up your messes." He sighed, blowing a cloud of steam into the air. "Look, I know you are angry. I get it. The optics are bad, but you are escalating this to a place it doesn't need to go. Lawyers? Freezing accounts? You are going to bankrupt Mom and Dad trying to save them." I didn't say anything. I just watched a duck struggle against the wind on the water. "I have a fix," Austin said, turning to me. His eyes were wide, pleading. "I talked to a buddy of mine. He has a rental property in Cedar Creek, a nice duplex. He is willing to let Mom and Dad move in next week. No credit check. First month free. I will pay the deposit." I looked at him. "You will pay the deposit? With what money? The money you stole?" "It is not stealing if I fix it," he snapped, his voice cracking. "Look, I can get them into this place. They can have a home again, but you have to drop the lawsuit. You have to unfreeze the accounts." We walk away. "Scarlett, we call it a wash. No one goes to jail. Mom and Dad don't have to be humiliated in court." I realized then what he was offering. It wasn't a solution. It was a gag order. He wanted to buy my silence with a cheap rental agreement. He wanted to sweep the ashes under the rug and pretend the house had never burned down. "Is that it?" I asked. "That is your offer?" "It is a good offer," he insisted. "It keeps the family together." I reached into my bag. I didn't pull out a checkbook. I pulled out a single sheet of paper that Elena had drafted that morning. "I have a counteroffer," I said. I slid the paper across the bench. The wind tried to take it, but Austin pinned it down with his hand. He looked at the header. Affidavit of Confession and Allocation of Liability. "What is this?" he whispered. "It is a sworn statement," I said, my voice steady and cold. "It says that you knowingly misrepresented the nature of the documents you had Mom and Dad sign. It says that you acted without their informed consent when you authorized the wire transfers. It says that the $45,000 sent to the collection agency was for your personal benefit, not theirs." Austin stared at the paper as if it were radioactive. "You want me to sign a confession? Are you insane? Prentice will kill me. I don't care about Prentice." I said, "I care about the truth. If you sign this, I will ask the judge for leniency regarding your personal liability. I will focus the lawsuit on the title company and the LLC. I will go after the deep pockets, but I need you to admit, on the record, that you lied to our parents." He crumpled the paper in his fist. "Never. Then we go to court," I said, standing up. "And when I put you on the stand, Austin, I will ask you about the gambling debts. I will ask you about the collection agency, and I will produce the bank records. You can either be a witness for me, or you can be a defendant. Choose." He looked up at me, his face twisted with hate. "You would really send your own brother to prison? You sent your own parents to a motel." I said. I walked away. I didn't look back, but I could feel his eyes boring into my spine. He wasn't going to sign. Not yet. He still thought he could charm his way out of the trap. When I got back to my apartment, the atmosphere was suffocating. My parents were sitting on the sofa, watching a game show with the volume turned too low. They looked like guests who had overstayed their welcome and were terrified of breaking a coaster. I sat down in the armchair opposite them. "I saw Austin," I said. My mother sat up, hope flashing across her face like a beacon. "Is he okay? Is he mad? He is scared. Mom, he offered to get you a rental if I drop the lawsuit." My father let out a breath. "See? He is trying to help. Maybe we should take it. Scarlett, maybe we should just let this go. We can start over. We don't need a big house." I looked at them. I saw the desperate desire to return to the status quo, to the comfortable denial where Austin was just unlucky and I was just overbearing. "He wants me to drop the fraud investigation," I said. "He wants me to let the people who stole your equity keep it. He wants you to live in a duplex paid for with the scraps of your own life savings, while Greg Prentice walks away with $300,000. My mother picked at a loose thread on the sofa cushion. "Scarlett, we don't want people to know. If this goes to court, everyone will know we were foolish. Everyone will know we signed things we didn't read. It is so embarrassing." I leaned forward. "I know," I said gently. "I know it hurts. I know you feel ashamed, but shame is how they control you. Austin is counting on your silence. He is betting his freedom on your embarrassment." I took a deep breath. "I will not abandon you," I said. "I will make sure you have a roof over your heads. I will make sure you have food. But I will not lie for you anymore. I will not pretend that Austin is a good son who made a mistake. He is a criminal who targeted you. And if you ask me to drop this case, you are asking me to be an accomplice to your own abuse." My father looked at me. His eyes were watery, red-rimmed from sleeplessness. "You are so hard. Scarlett," he whispered, "you have always been so hard. I am the wall." "Dad," I said, "you can hate the wall for being hard, but it is the only thing standing between you and the wind." He looked away. He didn't argue. He knew I was right, and he hated me for it. The next morning, the breakthrough arrived. Marcus Vance, the private investigator, met me in the lobby of my office building. He wasn't wearing his usual trench coat. He was wearing a suit, trying to blend in with the corporate crowd. He handed me a USB drive. "We got a fish," he said quietly. "Who?" "A junior analyst at Blue Harbor Assets," Marcus said. "Name is Sarah. She is 24. She thought she was getting into real estate investment. She didn't realize she was getting into predatory lending until she saw the file for your parents' house." "What is on the drive?" "Playbooks," Marcus said. "Training manuals." I went up to my office and plugged the drive into my laptop. I opened a file titled Acquisition Strategy, Distressed Seniors. I read it, and my blood turned to ice. Target profile: homeowners aged 65 plus, high equity, low liquidity, ideally with adult children living out of state. Strategy: creating urgency, emphasize market correction or repairs needed. The closer: utilize family member leverage if possible. Offer quick cash to solve immediate crisis. It was a script. Every word Austin had said. The market crash, the repairs, the quick cash. It was all here. He hadn't improvised his pitch. He had been coached. He was an actor reading lines written by Greg Prentice. I called Elena immediately. "I have the playbook." I said, "I have the proof of premeditation. File the regulatory complaints." Elena said, "Now, by noon." Elena had fired off formal complaints to the State Department of Licensing, the State Bar Association, and the Consumer Protection Division of the Attorney General's office. She attached the timeline. She attached the bank records. She attached selected pages from the playbook. It was like kicking a hornet's nest. At 2:00, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Harris?" a male voice asked. "This is Mark Rylance, the notary, the man who had taken my $300 in the coffee shop. I am listening." "Mark, I just got a notification from the Secretary of State," he stammered. "They are auditing my commission. Ms. Harris, please, I have a family. I can't lose my stamp." "Then tell the truth." I said, "If I talk, Prentice will sue me. He has a non-disclosure agreement. An NDA doesn't cover criminal activity. Mark, you have 24 hours to call my attorney and schedule a deposition. If you don't, I hand the video of you taking my bribe to the police." I hung up. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. It was the branch manager of the title company. She was crying. "Ms. Harris, we are reviewing the file. There seems to have been a clerical error regarding the ID verification. We want to cooperate. We are freezing all funds related to Blue Harbor in our escrow accounts." The dominoes were falling. The silence was breaking. But Austin wasn't done. He showed up at my apartment building that evening. He buzzed the intercom for 10 minutes straight until I finally went down to the lobby. I didn't let him up. I didn't want him near my parents. He looked wild. His eyes were bloodshot, and he smelled of sweat and panic. "You filed a complaint against Prentice?" he hissed. "Cornering me by the mailboxes. Do you have any idea what you have done? He is going to ruin me. He says I am liable for the loan. You are liable." "Austin," I said calmly, "you signed the papers." He grabbed my arm. His grip was painful. "You have to stop this. Scarlett, you have to call the licensing board and tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them you were confused. Let go of me." I said. He pulled me closer. His face was inches from mine. "If you don't stop, I am going to tell them," he whispered. "Tell them what?" "I am going to tell Mom and Dad the truth about you." I froze. "What truth?" "I am going to tell them about the text messages you sent to your ex-boyfriend 3 years ago," Austin said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Remember those? The ones where you said you wish they would just disappear? The ones where you said you were waiting for them to die so you could be free of the burden?" My stomach dropped. I remembered. It was a dark night. Years ago, I had been paying their bills for a decade. I was exhausted. I was drunk. I had vented to a man I thought I loved. Austin must have gone through my phone at some point, or my ex had forwarded them. I have screenshots. "Scarlett," he hissed, "if I show those to Mom and Dad, if they see that their reliable daughter actually hates them, it will break their hearts. They will never speak to you again. They will choose me. Even if I stole from them, because at least I don't wish them dead." He released my arm. "Drop the case by morning, or I send the screenshots." He walked out of the lobby, leaving me shaking in the cold draft of the door. I went upstairs. I stood outside the door to my apartment for a long time. I could hear the television. I could hear my father coughing. He was right. I had said those things. I had felt those things. The resentment of the reliable child is a heavy, toxic thing. It builds up like sediment in a pipe until it chokes you. I had fantasized about walking away. I had fantasized about a life where my money was my own and my phone didn't ring with crises. If he showed them those texts, it would confirm their worst fear, that my love was just obligation. I opened the door. My parents looked up. They saw my face. "What is it?" my mother asked. "Did he call again?" I walked into the center of the room. I turned off the television. "I need to tell you something," I said. I sat down. I didn't look at the floor. I looked them in the eye. "Austin just threatened me," I said. "He has text messages from 3 years ago. Messages where I said I was tired of taking care of you. Messages where I said I wished I could walk away. He is going to show them to you to try and make you hate me, so I will drop the lawsuit." My mother put her hand to her throat. "Scarlett, did you mean them?" I looked at her. I didn't flinch. "Yes," I said. The silence was absolute. "I meant them." I continued. I was exhausted. I was 30 years old, and I had spent every bonus, every raise, and every free moment making sure you were safe. I felt like a parent to my own parents. I felt trapped. And yes, sometimes, in the dark. I wanted to run away. My father looked down at his hands. But I didn't run. I said, my voice rising, "That is the difference between me and Austin. He tells you he loves you, and he steals your house. I tell you I am exhausted, and I buy you a house. I show up, I pay the bills, I fix the mess, I stood up. I am not going to hide my resentment anymore. I earned it. It is the price of being the one who stays. So if you want to hate me for being human, you can. But I am not going to let him blackmail me into letting him destroy you." My mother started to cry, but she didn't look away. She looked at me with something new, not gratitude, recognition. She saw me, for the first time, not as a resource, but as a person who was carrying a load that was too heavy. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I don't need an apology." "Mom," I said, "I need you to understand. I am fighting for you, but I am also fighting for myself, because I deserve to have parents who don't let their son rob me." I went to my room and closed the door. I didn't know if they would forgive me, but for the first time in my life, I didn't care about being the good daughter. I only cared about being the honest one. The next morning, the urgency shifted from emotional to critical. Elena called me at 7 a.m. "The list pendens hasn't indexed yet," she said, her voice tight. "The county clerk is backed up, and my source at the title company just called. Prentice is trying to push the closing to this afternoon." "This afternoon?" "He knows the walls are closing in," Elena said. "He is trying to wash the asset. He has a cash buyer coming in at 2 p.m. to sign, if they sign, and the deed records before our list pendens hits the system. The house is gone. The new buyer will be a bona fide purchaser. We won't be able to unwind it. What do? We go to court," Elena said. "Now, I have drafted an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order. We are going to beg a judge to intervene ex parte, without the other side present. It is a long shot. Scarlett, judges hate interfering with contracts on hearsay, but it is the only card we have left." I met her at the courthouse steps at 9 a.m. The building loomed over us, gray and imposing. We ran to the clerk's office. We filed the motion. Then we waited. We sat on a hard wooden bench in the hallway outside Department 4. The minutes ticked by like hours. Every time a phone rang, I jumped, thinking it was Austin, or Prentice, or the news that the house was sold. At 11 a.m., the clerk poked her head out. "Judge Miller will see you in chambers. 5 minutes." We walked into the judge's chambers. Judge Miller was a stern woman with glasses on a chain. She had our motion on her desk. "Ms. Vance," she said to Elena, You are asking me to halt a real estate transaction based on allegations of fraud that haven't been proven. This is a significant overreach, Your Honor, Elena said, keeping her voice calm. This is not just an allegation. We have a sworn timeline. We have bank records showing immediate dissipation of funds. We have a declaration from a title officer admitting to procedural errors. If this sale goes through, 2 elderly people will lose their only asset. The harm is irreparable. The judge looked at the papers. Where are the parents? She asked. They are safe, Elena said. I need to hear from them. The judge said, if they signed the power of attorney, then on the face of it, the sale was legal. I need to know they didn't intend for this to happen. I stepped forward. They are terrified. Your Honor, I said, they are ashamed. But they will speak. The judge looked at me. She looked at the clock. It is 11:15. If this closing is happening at 2, you don't have much time. I will grant a temporary stay only if I hear from the homeowners by 1 o'clock. Get them here. I ran out of the chambers. I called my father. Dad, I said, I need you. I need you to come to the courthouse. Now, I can't. Scarlett, he said, his voice trembling. Austin is calling. He says he will fix it. Dad, listen to me, I shouted, not caring who heard me in the hallway. The house is being sold in 2 hours, forever. If you don't come down here and tell the judge you didn't mean to give Austin the money, it is gone, and I am gone. I meant what I said last night. If you don't stand up now, I am walking away. There was a long silence on the line. I heard my mother in the background. Give me the phone, Bob. Scarlett? It was my mother. Her voice was shaking, but it was clear. We are coming. I waited on the steps. At 12:30, a cab pulled up. My parents got out. They looked small in the shadow of the courthouse. My father was using his cane. My mother was clutching her purse like a shield. They walked up the steps. I didn't hug them. I just nodded. This way. I said. We walked toward the metal detectors. As we reached the security line, my phone buzzed. A text from Austin. I know they are there. You win. Scarlett. But watch your back. I turned off my phone. We walked into the courtroom. The air was stale and heavy. We were about to save the house, or we were about to lose the family. There was no middle ground left. The courtroom smelled of floor wax and old paper, a scent that usually signaled order and reason. But as I sat at the counsel table next to Elena, my hands clasped so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The air felt thick with chaos. We were in Department 4, the emergency calendar, where lives were dismantled in 15-minute increments. Judge Miller sat on the bench, her face unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. She looked like a woman who had heard every variation of a lie and had lost the patience to sort them out. Opposing us was a man named Mr. Sterling. He was slick, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, and he represented Blue Harbor Assets, LLC. He didn't look like a fraudster. He looked like the establishment. He stood up, buttoning his jacket with a confident snap of his wrist. Your Honor, he began, his voice smooth and resonant. This motion is a desperate attempt to interfere with a lawful commercial transaction. The plaintiff, Ms. Harris, is not a party to this sale. She is an estranged daughter who is unhappy with her parents' financial decisions. She is trying to use this court to exert control over 2 competent adults who simply decided to downsize. He gestured toward the back of the room, where my parents sat huddled on a wooden bench. They looked terrifyingly small. My father was clutching his cane like a lifeline. My mother was staring at her shoes. We have a signed deed, Sterling continued. We have a notarized power of attorney. We have a valid purchase agreement. Ms. Harris claims fraud, yet she offers no proof that her parents were incompetent. She simply doesn't like the price. That is not a legal basis for an injunction. That is seller's remorse by proxy. I felt the heat rise in my neck. He was painting me as the villain. He was using the very narrative Austin had planted, that I was the bitter, controlling spinster trying to manage my parents' money. Elena stood up. Her voice was sharper, cutting through Sterling's fog. Your Honor, this is not remorse. This is theft. We have submitted a timeline showing that the proceeds of this sale were immediately diverted to pay the debts of the son. Austin Harris, who held the power of attorney. This was a predatory scheme designed to strip equity from vulnerable seniors in under 48 hours. Judge Miller held up a hand. I have read the briefs. Ms. Vance, the timeline is suspicious, but Mr. Sterling makes a valid point regarding agency. If the parents knowingly signed the power of attorney, and if they authorized the son to act, then the court cannot unwind a sale just because it was a bad deal. The judge shifted her gaze to the back of the room. I need to hear from Robert and Linda Harris. My stomach dropped. This was the moment. My parents stood up. They shuffled through the swinging gate and approached the witness stand. The bailiff swore them in. My father looked like he was about to faint. My mother looked like she was about to cry. Mr. Harris, the judge asked, leaning forward, did you sign a power of attorney granting your son authority to sell your home? My father gripped the railing of the witness box. He looked at me. Then he looked at the empty seat where Austin should have been. Austin wasn't there. He was hiding, waiting for the money to hit his account. We signed some papers, my father stammered. Austin brought them over. He said they were to help with the closing, to make it easier. Did you understand that you were giving him the right to control your bank accounts? The judge asked. My father hesitated. He looked at Sterling, who was staring at him with a predatory intensity. I don't know, my father whispered. We trusted him. He is our son. He said he was handling it. Sterling stood up. Objection. Your Honor, the witness is being vague. Did he or did he not sign the document? The signature is verified. The judge narrowed her eyes. Mr. Harris, I am asking you a direct question. Did you intend to sell your house for $185,000? My father wavered. I could see the denial rising in his throat. The old habit of protecting Austin, of smoothing things over, of pretending everything was fine. Well, he started, his voice shaking. The market is tricky. Austin said it was a fair price. We didn't want to be a burden. I closed my eyes. He was doing it. He was falling on his sword to save the son who had stabbed him. He was going to legitimize the fraud because he was too ashamed to admit he had been duped. I couldn't watch it happen. Your Honor, I said, standing up abruptly. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Elena grabbed my arm. Scarlett, sit down. I ignored her. Your Honor, I request a brief recess. Judge Miller looked at me, surprised by the interruption. Ms. Harris, you are not counsel. I know, I said, my voice trembling but loud. But those are my parents. And they are about to perjure themselves because they are terrified. Please, give me 5 minutes. Sterling laughed. This is highly irregular. She is trying to coach the witnesses. I am not trying to coach them, I shouted, turning on him. I am trying to get them to breathe. The courtroom went silent. Judge Miller looked at my parents, who were trembling in the stand. She looked at me. She saw the desperation in my face. 10 minutes, she said, banging her gavel. But Ms. Harris, if I smell even a hint of coercion, I will throw you out of my courtroom. We went into the hallway. It was a long, sterile corridor lined with benches. My parents sat down heavily. My mother was weeping softly into a tissue. My father was staring at the wall, his face gray. I stood in front of them. I didn't kneel. I didn't hold their hands. I needed them to see me standing. Why? I asked. Why were you doing that? You were about to tell her it was okay. My father looked up. His eyes were full of misery. Scarlett, we can't make Austin a criminal. If we say he tricked us, he goes to jail. He is already a criminal. Dad, I said, you aren't making him one. You are just identifying him. I can't do it, he whispered. I can't be the one who destroys him. I took a deep breath. I felt the last remnant of my childhood role, the fixer, the safety net, the shock absorber, dissolve. I looked at the two people I loved most in the world, and I realized I had to break their hearts to save their lives. Listen to me, I said. My voice was low, devoid of anger, stripped down to the hard bone of truth. I have fought for you my whole life. I bought the house. I paid the bills. I stayed up nights worrying about your heat and your food. I did it because I love you. I paused. But I will not be your shield if you keep handing my brother the knife. My father flinched as if I had slapped him. If you go back in there and lie for him, I continued, if you let him take that house, then you are on your own. I will not pay for the motel. I will not buy you a condo. I will not come to dinner. I will walk out of this courthouse and I will never look back. Scarlett, my mother gasped. You don't mean that. I do. I said, and you know I do. Because unlike Austin, I don't lie to you. I looked at my father. You have to choose. Dad. Right now. You can choose the son who stole your home, or the daughter who is trying to get it back. But you cannot have both. Not today. The silence in the hallway was deafening. I watched the struggle play out on my father's face. The loyalty to his firstborn warring with the reality of his survival. He looked at my mother. She nodded. A tiny, almost imperceptible movement. He looked back at me. He saw the wall I had become. He saw that I was immovable. Okay, he whispered. Okay, Scarlett. We walked back into the courtroom. The energy had shifted. My parents didn't shuffle this time. They walked with the heavy, dragging steps of people walking to a funeral. But they were moving forward. They took the stand again. Judge Miller looked at them. Mr. Harris, let's try again. Did you understand the documents you signed? My father cleared his throat. It was a dry, rasping sound. No, Your Honor. The air in the room seemed to change pressure. Sterling stiffened at his table. Explain, the judge said. My father gripped the rail. His knuckles were gnarled with arthritis. Austin told us the papers were routine, he said, his voice gaining a little strength. He said the power of attorney was just to save us the trip to the office. He said the house sale was a temporary maneuver to protect the equity. He told us we were smart to do it. And the money? The judge asked. Did you authorize the wire transfer to the collection agency? No, my father said. He looked down. We didn't know about that until Scarlett showed us the bank statements. We thought the money was in a savings account. We thought he was taking care of us. My mother spoke up then. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. He moved us into a motel, she said. She looked at the judge. He took my phone. He changed my passwords. He told us that if we talked to our daughter, she would put us in a home. He made us afraid of her. She looked at me from the stand. Her eyes were wet. But she is the only one who told us the truth. Sterling jumped up. Your Honor, this is hearsay. This is a coordinated pivot tailored by the plaintiff during the recess. Judge Miller silenced him with a look. Sit down, counsel. I'm listening to the witnesses. She turned back to my parents. Do you want this sale to proceed? No, my father said firmly. We want to go home. The judge nodded. She started to write something on her notepad. It looked like we had done it. I felt a surge of relief so strong it made me dizzy, but Sterling wasn't done. Your Honor, he said, his voice slick with false apology. If I may, the witnesses claim they were misled, but I have a document here that suggests otherwise, a document signed by the plaintiff herself, Ms. Scarlett Harris, acknowledging the sale strategy 3 weeks ago. He walked to the bench and handed a paper to the judge, then dropped a copy on our table. I stared at it. It was a letter addressed to Blue Harbor Assets, to whom it may concern. I, Scarlett Harris, am aware of the sale of 405 Maple Drive and agree that it is in the best interest of my parents. At the bottom was my signature. I stared at the loop of the S, the sharp cross of the T. It was my signature. I didn't sign this. I stammered. I have never seen this before. Sterling smirked. It looks like your signature, Ms. Harris. Perhaps you were part of the plan until you realized there wasn't enough profit in it for you? The judge looked at the letter. She looked at me with renewed suspicion. Ms. Harris? She asked. I felt the room spinning. It was a perfect trap. If I was involved, my testimony was void. The case would collapse. Elena grabbed the paper. She pulled a magnifying glass from her briefcase, a theatrical prop she always carried but rarely used. She held it over the signature. Then she laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of a laugh. "Your Honor," she said, "this is a clumsy forgery." She walked up to the bench. "Look at the pixelation on the curve of the S," Elena said, pointing, "and look at the ink density. It is uniform. This wasn't signed with a pen. It was scanned and printed." She turned to me. "Scarlett, do you recognize this specific version of your signature?" I looked closer, and then I saw it. There was a tiny, microscopic dot above the I in Harris. Not a dot, a small, open circle. I gasped. "It is from a holiday card," I said. "I haven't dotted my I's with a circle since I was 25. I only did that for personal cards." I looked at Sterling. "My brother has a box of my old letters in the garage," I said, my voice rising. "He lifted this from a Christmas card. If you check the metadata on the file this was printed from, you will see it is a digital paste." Sterling looked flustered. He started to gather his papers. "I am merely presenting what was given to me by my client." "Your Honor." Judge Miller looked at the document. Then she looked at Sterling with eyes like flint. "Mr. Sterling, you are treading on very thin ice. This signature is clearly a digital artifact, and the fact that it suddenly appeared in the 11th hour speaks to its lack of authenticity." She slammed the file shut. "Motion for temporary restraining order is granted. The sale of 405 Maple Drive is enjoined. The clerk is ordered to record the lis pendens immediately. I am also referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation into document tampering and potential fraud." She banged the gavel. The sound rang out like a gunshot. "This hearing is adjourned." We walked out of the courtroom into the bustling hallway. My parents were leaning on each other, exhausted, drained of all adrenaline. Elena was already on her phone, calling the sheriff to serve the order on the title company. I felt numb. It was a win. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like surviving a car crash. Then the elevator doors opened, and Austin stepped out. He was holding a stack of papers. He must have been coming to file something, or maybe to watch the final nail be driven into my coffin. He stopped when he saw us. He saw the look on Sterling's face as the lawyer brushed past him, muttering about malpractice. He saw my parents standing behind me. "Austin," my father said. His voice was sad, so incredibly sad. Austin looked at me. His face crumpled, but not with remorse. It twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He threw the papers on the floor. "You did it, didn't you?" he hissed. "You couldn't just let it go. You had to ruin it. You ruined it." "Austin," I said calmly, "you stole their house. You forged my signature. It is over. The judge stopped the sale. The DA is involved." Austin took a step toward me. His hands were fists. "You think you won?" he spat. "You think you are the hero? You just destroyed this family. Scarlett, you humiliated them. Look at them. They are shaking." I stepped in front of my parents. I didn't flinch. "They are shaking because they finally stood up to you." I said. Austin laughed. A high, manic sound. "They will hate you for this. Give it a month. When the bills come in, when the shame settles, they will remember that you dragged them through court. They will blame you for exposing us. You didn't save them. You just made sure everyone knows our business." He looked at my mother. "Mom, tell her. Tell her you didn't want this." My mother looked at him. She didn't step forward. She didn't reach for him. She held my father's arm. "Go home." "Austin," she whispered. Austin stared at her. The rejection hit him harder than the lawsuit. He looked at me with hatred that I knew would last a lifetime. "I hope you are happy alone." "Scarlett," he said, "because that is what you are. You aren't a daughter. You are just a bank." He turned and stormed down the hallway, kicking the papers he had dropped. I watched him go. I watched the brother I had played tag with, the brother I had defended on the playground, walk out of our lives. We walked outside the courthouse. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement slick and black. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun trying to break through the heavy clouds. My phone, which I had turned back on, started to vibrate in my pocket. It was a continuous, frantic buzzing. I pulled it out. New voicemail. State Regulatory Board. New text. Marcus Vance. Prentice is shredding documents. We need to move. New email. Anonymous. You stopped the sale. Now watch your back. The war wasn't over. It was just expanding. The restraining order was a bandage. But the infection, Prentice, the fraud ring, the criminal charges, was deep. I was going to be deposed. My parents were going to be interviewed. The secrets of our family, the debts, the enabling, the resentment, were going to be flayed open for the public record. I looked at my parents. They were standing by the curb, waiting for me to call a cab. They looked older than they had this morning. The illusion of their golden years was gone. The illusion of their perfect family was gone. My mother looked at me. She hesitated, then spoke. Her voice was small, fragile, like a bird with a broken wing. Scarlett? Yes. Mom? If we lose the house, she asked, clutching her purse. If the bank takes it, or if the legal fees are too much. She paused, biting her lip. Will you still come for dinner? I looked at her. It was the question beneath all the other questions. Do you still love us? Are we still a family now that the lies are gone? I looked at the courthouse doors behind me, massive and indifferent. I looked at the street, leading back to my solitary apartment, to my quiet, orderly life. I could walk away. I had done my duty. I had stopped the theft. I could get in a separate cab and go back to being the girl who sends checks, but never stays for dessert. It would be easier. But then I looked at my father's trembling hand resting on my mother's arm. I saw the fear in their eyes, not of poverty, but of abandonment. I realized that the wall I had built wasn't just to keep the world out. It was to keep myself in. And if I wanted them to be honest, I had to be vulnerable. I put my phone in my pocket. I silenced the noise of the regulators and the lawyers and the threats. I stepped toward them. I will come for dinner. Mom, I said. Her face crumbled into relief. She reached out and took my hand. My father put his hand on my shoulder. We stood there, a broken, messy, imperfect triangle, holding on to each other on a wet sidewalk. But I will not cook, I added, and we are not talking about Austin. My father managed a weak, watery smile. Deal, he said. I looked up at the sky. The clouds were parting. Just a sliver. I didn't know if we would get the house back. I didn't know if Austin would go to jail. I didn't know if I could ever truly forgive them for the years of neglect. But as the cab pulled up, I opened the door for them. I wasn't the savior anymore. I was just the daughter. And for the first time in 30 years, that felt like enough. Thank you for listening to this story. It was a journey into the difficult world of family loyalty and the hard choices we sometimes have to make to protect the ones we love, even from themselves. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Please leave a comment with your location, and if you enjoyed Scarlett's battle for truth, make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Scarlett made the right choice in the end? I read every single one. See you in the next story.